In animated introduction, we see several characters set against a narration by the Watcher explaining alternate worlds and realities. He is essentially the host. On Earth in Europe, June 1943, Red Skull leads Hydra's forces for the Nazi regime. In Brooklyn, Steve Rogers volunteers to become Captain America, and the events of the first Avenger take place. But in another universe, Peggy Carter chooses to stay in the lab rather than watch from the room as Steve has the serum administered. As such, she is present during the attempted infiltration, and the Hydra agent operates differently with more people in the lab. In the attack, Rogers is shot and Howard Stark orders a subject be placed in the module or the project will be lost. Carter volunteers herself for the serum and gets in. Against General Flynn's orders, Stark administers the serum to Carter while Rogers watches on. Carter emerges from the capsule much taller and stronger than before. Though Stark declares the experiment a perfect success, Flynn admonishes the project as a complete failure since only one person was enhanced and it wasn't even a US military soldier. Carter tells him that he has a super soldier, but Flynn tells her that women don't fight on the front lines. In the next scene, Carter is hitting a heavy bag with Rogers in rehab watching. Though Carter wishes she could fight, Rogers reminds her that she could get stuck on USO tours. They exchange remarks about dancing before the scene ends. In Norway, a group of soldiers marches outside the building and Steve tells her about Bucky. Carter apologizes for taking his place, but Rogers tells her that now she can be the one to end the war. In a town in Europe, a Hydra battalion descends on an unwilling man, while Stark, Flynn, and Carter contemplate the act. They are there to get the Tesseract. The leader extracts the Tesseract and his army kills the man. Stark and Carter volunteer to help. Flynn objects, figuring the war will be over before Hydra learns how to activate that Tesseract. In a bar afterwards, Stark and Carter discuss the situation, where he provides her with a costume and a shield. Hydra is intercepted by Captain Carter. She is able to easily take them out and is surprised at her own abilities. Carter recovers the Tesseract and presents it to Flynn. Stark is given the Tesseract and uses it to build a weapon for Rogers to use. Carter breaks into a prison to break out Bucky Barnes. Her efforts are helped by Ogers, who arrives in a prototype iron suit powered by the Tesseract. With the success of the mission, Captain Carter and Rogers team up as an alternate captain and Iron Man for more efforts to end the war. When Red Skull is confronted by a general of the Third Reich, he kills him in protest to advance the power of Hydra. Carter and Rogers have dinner together and discuss the implications of heroism on one's reputation. They are interrupted by Stark as he informs them of their next mission. Carter plans the train infiltration with Bucky and the 107th tour. Iron Rogers lands on the train and the team follows. Bucky almost falls, but Carter catches him by the left arm. Rogers checks the front of the train, but it is loaded with dynamite and blows up. Steve falls into the crevice along with the train. Flynn is concerned about the loss of the suit, but Carter goes to interrogate the doctor. She learns Red Skull's plans and helps Flynn to launch a counterattack. Carter leads the assault on Hydra Castle with Bucky, Stark, and a team of fighters. Inside, Red Skull uses the Tesseract to open a portal beyond space. The team discovers Rogers imprisoned in the Hydra Stomper iron suit, missing the Tesseract. Red Skull is immediately killed by the monster. Bucky gets Rogers back into the suit and powers it up using the generator. Rogers gets into the suit and flies to help Peggy. Stark is able to reset the suction of the portal, reversing the monster's entry into our world. Peggy and Rogers attempt to physically push the monster back to its world. Peggy must return with it in order to close the portal. The portal closes and Rogers is left with the Tesseract. At a later time, Nick Fury and Clint Barton open the portal, which brings back Carter. The Watcher closes the show narrating how Carter's decision to stay in the room gave the universe, but his role requires that he not interfere. Episode 2. What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Open on Morang as Star-Lord enters the chamber holding the Power Stone. After retrieving it, he is intercepted by Korath on orders from Ronan. Korath is a big fan or Star-Lord, who is T'Challa in this universe, but still fights him in an attempt to recover the Power Stone for Ronan. Although he loses, T'Challa still takes Korath with him. Yondu arrives to help T'Challa and the new recruit. The Ravagers leave the planet as the Watcher narrates the story. In 1988, a child T'Challa complains to his father, King T'Chaka, about the seclusion of Wakanda. Though he understands his child's desire to explore, T'Chaka urges him to stay in Wakanda where he would be safe. As T'Challa wanders outside the barrier wall, he is abducted by the Ravagers on their last assignment to recover the offspring of Ego. Yondu scolds them for abducting the wrong one, but is surprised by T'Challa's interest in exploration. He happily joins the group and they continue their adventures for the next 20 years. In a bar, the Ravagers share a drink and discuss T'Challa's greatest jobs. At one point, Thanos appears and admits that T'Challa merely had to speak to him in order to end the Infinity Quest before it even began. T'Challa encounters Drax as a bartender who praises him for stopping Ronan's Kree invasion that would have killed his family. He also sees Nebula with shoulder-length blonde hair. Nebula talks to T'Challa about the Power Stone, asking if Thanos, her father, knows he has it. She also remarks about his necklace. T'Challa tells her that Yondu tried to bring him back to Wakanda once, but found that it had been destroyed by another war. Nebula tells him of a job to recover the embers of Genesis, which can terraform a planet in minutes. T'Challa sees it as an opportunity. The Collector is the Mark, but has become much more powerful in this universe as Thanos is not seeking domination. Yondu disagrees with the job, but T'Challa manages to convince him. The Ravagers go over the plan to pose as sellers on Nowhere to get past the Black Order by causing a distraction. Nebula and Yondu meet the Collector while T'Challa looks for the embers. He sees several prisoners, including Cosmo the Space Dog. He frees Howard the Duck in an effort to find the embers. Outside, Proxima Midnight confronts the Ravagers and realizes that it's a diversion. She sounds the alarm as Howard is enjoying a drink during happy hour at the bar. T'Challa runs when he hears the alarm and comes to a room housing a Wakandan spacecraft. He has a video of his father pleading for the return of his son. Before he can think about it, he is taken by Nebula and imprisoned with Yondu and the rest. T'Challa confronts Yondu on lying to him about Wakanda being destroyed. Yondu tells him that the Ravagers are his family, but T'Challa tells them they are not. Corvus Glaive arrives to take T'Challa to the Collector. In a glass cell, Tivan and T'Challa chat before Tivan gives the order to Ebony Maw to dissect T'Challa. Nebula shoots Corvus to reveal that their distraction plan worked and she recovered the embers. T'Challa breaks free of the cage and is saved by Tivan's servant before Ebony Maw can kill him. T'Challa and Tivan fight, but T'Challa is no match for his collection, which includes a dark matter dagger and Hela's crown. The Ravagers run from the Black Order as Thanos decides to engage them. He fights Cull Obsidian, but Cull gets an assist from Proxima. Yondu arrives to help T'Challa fight Tivan, who swiftly breaks his arrow. Cull and Proxima beat Thanos, but Nebula saves them by throwing some ember seeds into Cull's mouth, starting the terraforming of Nowhere. She brings Thanos onto the Ravager ship and orders to take off. Inside, Yondu and T'Challa are able to beat Tivan by knocking him into his own cell. They give control to Karina, who frees all of his prisoners before opening his cell. T'Challa and Yondu leave with Cosmo the Space Dog on the Wakandan ship as Nowhere terraforms. T'Challa and Yondu discuss his desire to explore, and T'Challa decides to return them to Wakanda, where he reunites with his parents. He introduces the Ravagers as his family mate along the way. Elsewhere, Ego encounters Peter Quill on Earth, which the Watcher says could mean the end of the world, but that's another story. The episode is dedicated to Chadwick Boseman, who voices T'Challa once again in this role. Episode 3. What if the world lost its mightiest heroes? Monday, Nick Fury talks about the Avengers Initiative with Natasha Romanoff as they approach Tony Stark in the storyline of Iron Man 2. Fury and Stark discuss his actions as Romanoff injects the lithium dioxide into Stark. Rather than subside his symptoms, the injection kills him. The Watcher describes how one universe has Stark becoming part of the Avengers, but in this one. Tuesday, Coulson calls Fury to tell them about finding Mjolnir. Fury takes Romanoff prisoner for the murder of Stark and hands her a capsule. She is transported with Crossbones and the team. She escapes. In Puente Antiguo, New Mexico, Hawkeye shows Fury Mjolnir. They discuss it as a figure approaches, taking out S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives all along the base. Thor infiltrates the base to pick up Mjolnir, but Barton unintentionally loses the arrow, killing Thor before he can lift the hammer. Coulson and Fury discuss the kills. Barton is found to have died in his cell. Wednesday, Culver University in Virginia. Betty Ross is approached by Romanoff. She gives Ross the needle she stuck Stark with. Under a microscope, the needle appears frayed, indicating it may have shot a projectile. Romanoff receives the news that Barton is dead. Fury connects Barton and Stark as candidates for the Avengers Initiative as Romanoff realizes Bruce Banner is in the building. She tells him they need to leave. Coulson approaches S.H.I.E.L.D. as the Bifrost Bridge transports Loki and the army of Asgard. Fury takes a call from Romanoff as she engages General Ross and the U.S. Army. Bruce takes a shot and begins to transform into the Hulk. Hulk suddenly begins to inflate and eventually bursts, much to Betty's dismay. Nick Fury agrees to bring Loki the killer of Thor. Romanoff logs into S.H.I.E.L.D. records using Coulson's information. While researching operative agents, she realizes she is in the room with the assassin. She calls and tells Fury it's all about hope. Coulson reveals that Fury is the last name on the Avengers Initiative. Fury approaches the Destroyer to speak to Loki. Thursday, San Francisco. Hope Van Dyne lays dead as Hank Pym approaches Fury in his daughter's grave. Hank Pym is the Yellow Jacket in this universe and the assassin who killed Stark, Thor, Barton, Banner, and Romanoff. Fury engages Pym using Asgardian technology to reveal to Loki the true assassin responsible for the death of Thor. Loki takes Pym prisoner but decides to stay on Midgard. Friday, Loki approaches the United Nations and addresses the world as his loyal subjects. Fury clears the frost off Roger's casket as Captain Marvel arrives. Episode 4. What if instead of losing his hands, Doctor Strange lost his heart? The Watcher narrates a story in which Stephen Strange, rather than driving alone in the car accident that breaks his hands, is driving with his girlfriend, Dr. Christine Palmer. She is killed when he flies off the freeway, which prompts Strange to seek out the mystic arts. After the events of the first movie transpire, with Strange confronting Dormammu in a time loop, Doctor Strange contemplates using the Time Stone to go back to the day of Christine's death in order to stop it. Despite several trips back in time, Strange cannot stop Christine from dying and he begins to go mad. He uses the Time Stone to seek out the ancient library of Cagliostro, where he meets Obeng, the librarian. Strange studies the dark arts for years, eventually laying Obeng to rest despite Strange's plea to use the Time Stone to reverse his aging. Strange starts to become consumed by the dark arts and is eventually confronted by the Ancient One. She explains to him that she used her powers to split the timeline so that Strange could see the mistake he made. In spite of her warning, the evil Strange goes after himself in the timeline where Strange did not use the Time Stone to save Christine. After a fight, evil Strange consumes good Strange and goes back to finally save Christine. Even though he stopped her from dying in the timeline, his action causes the collapse of reality. Christine withers away as Strange confronts the Watcher, demanding to know why he didn't warn him. The Watcher responds that his role is not to interfere, and besides, would Strange have listened?